we're back in the shop, and believe me, we're going to have fun today. I've already had 6 cups of coffee, 4 bowls of cereal, and I'm ready to get to work. Just need my daily dose of inspiration to get moving. I'd like to take this to Midas Muffler and say, yeah, fix that exhaust pipe, will you please? 28 exhaust pipes. Now before we do the glassing on the old spit, and that's one of the next steps anyway, Mike Costello's here, and look at this guy. Oh boy. We're going to do a little work on him today. Get the canopy on, hopefully. I don't know what else. Mike's got his wheel pants done. Mike's got a bucket of parts. Oh! A bucket of wings, a bucket of parts, a 5-gallon bucket of something. I think it looks awesome. And we're going to hopefully, I like this. Look at the screening in the front.
Yeah, you can put this, slide the other one up and it matches.
Right. Cool.
You can get the tank out.
Yeah, getting the tank out is really important. That's like the things that really matter. It looks beautiful. This is going to be an all Brodak dope finish eventually. Got the elevators in shop so we can kind of get the view, so to speak, here. Oh, the thing is beautiful.
I got the hinges in the other box. Let me go get the other box.
Now, what Mike did, and I thought it was an extremely good idea at the time, and Mike agreed, is to make the thing an equal panel plane and do away with that unequal panel idea. And you can see this is an equal panel plane. And I think it'll trim out and fly just a whole lot better. What's the got tip weight box out here? You got the rear pants,
put more tip weight to start with, because every time...
Put an ounce out here. You're never going to have less than an ounce with an equal panel plane. All right, let me help you get the stuff out of the car. As Mike puts the guillotine in. This plane has so many cool little features. Okay. Now the first problem we're going to have to work on, we got to make motor mount pads, of course, and we're going to make a muffler. But Mike's concerned with, as well he should be at this point in time, that he's not going to be able to choke the... But crying out loud, you got to get into a bird cage there. You're never going to choke that. But I got an idea how we could do this. Is you got to be able to somehow get a... You got the piece goes in the back to it. You see this? He's even got screen for the back. Put the whole thing together. There's enough people that have never seen a real ballerina. I mean, all these newbies on the block that weren't around in '62, swathering around in Willow Grove or groveling to see the real ballerina. Okay, that goes in like a piece of dollhouse furniture.
Sort of.
Okay, now put the big cowl on. Is this ever cool?
That's cool.
That's a loaf of bread. I don't care what anything says. Definitely cool. He's got his cool little rear pant gizmos going. Mike, that is absolutely cool. All right, so the first thing we got to figure out is how we're going to be able to choke this now.
Or start it upside down and just have some kind of a squirt prime tube.
Okay, one of the things we could do is you can make a tube coming out the bottom. You know, the old days, you're going to have to resign to start this upside down. You're not going to start it with the gear on the grass or whatever. Okay? Even if you took a piece of tubing, I'd like to see it just going straight down, coming out of the cowling.
Yeah.
No, you could go in the side.
Oh, and come a little bit.
And divot over like that.
Yeah, okay.
These are real problems. Okay, the other thing I was thinking, you can't. See, I'm wrong. No matter where you go, your finger's not going to fit either way. You could also have it in the back of this, then you wouldn't see it. See, out here I don't like it. It looks like it's a vent or something. If you have it inside and just let it kind of stick backwards so you can put the tubing on and put it, like, get an eyedropper.
In.
I got a better idea. Here. Great idea. Wendy, you're always full of great ideas. Buy one of these, fill it with fuel, prime the engine with that, right through the screen.
Yeah, I will.
And lose the tubing. Yep. See? That's why I get paid the big money. That's why I get paid the big pizza. I think that's the best choice. Because no matter where you put a vent here, it's going to look like, like a sewer pipe or something coming out. And you put all this work into all these little beautiful, humagachis. You don't want to ruin that, that's for sure.
I think we should get the combination pie.
This, yeah, we'll order a pie right away.
Peppers, onions.
This is a good little deal, by the way.
Sauce, pepperoni. Yeah.
No, a little hypodermic needle, and just figure out how much a prime is and go, blink. That's definitely the way to go. Because you don't want to lose this screening. It just takes away from the whole nose of the plane. All right, one problem solved. Let's order a pizza. Any good nose construction is being able to do the maintenance, pull a motor out, pull a tank out, etc., etc.
Yeah, so why isn't it coming out?
One of the screws is probably hanging up.
Yeah, it is.
What Mike did just to simulate this is he made plywood pads, which we're going to make anodized aluminum ones now. So when I get the motor out, make sure the tank goes in and out. A little feature on the outboard wing so that it can have an adjustable trim tab on a little ball link or a little adjustable. Yeah, we put it all together at the end and take some pictures of it. That's cool. Tip weight box is a little on the skimpy side.
It is on the skimpy side.
I'd be putting an ounce out here somewhere where you can't see it. At least an ounce. You're never going to use less than an ounce.
I think a half an ounce under this.
A half? We'll put another half.
We'll put another half on.
Yeah, cut a piece in half so it can go right up against this rib. It's not out here flapping. And it's out on the end. It's bending the wing all the time.
Put a little beef over here so that if we really get desperate, we can drill through here and
shove clay in.
Shove solder or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. I'll work on while Mike is here. The last thing, we're saving it for last because it's going to be vulnerable, is to get the canopy permanently mounted. And Mike has the canopy painted inside and outside. It's in two pieces. And then he's going to build a fillet in the front. And this is the way, one of the look of the real Ballerina. I don't know how accurate it is. And we brought, Mike has an extra canopy, of course. Not that he thinks I'm going to screw this up on him, but...
They've made us a whole mess of it.
How many of these you got? A bunch of them? Use these for little bathtubs for dollhouses or something. Look at this. You can make a little Victorian dollhouse bathtub.
The old Ballerina plants that I sent
plywood pieces out. Now, the tank should go in and out. And if that doesn't happen, out comes the Dremel tool. Okay.
Oops, I shut the back too far.
Well, now you got room for a 4.5 or a 5. You want a 5?
I got a 5 here.
I think I have 4.5s too, if you want one.
Well, 4.5 would be better because that way we'd never have to worry about,
Yeah, okay, sure. Let me look. My feeling is, and Mike seems to agree, he's got the room for the extra half. Oh, good. You could probably, your 5-room fit?
It starts to squeak as you get it back.
I'd always rather have a bigger tank and take a little fuel out. When it's too small, it's use time. This is nice back here. Anybody doesn't know.
Oh, man, that's perfect.
Well, you're in Wendy's.
Rattling around.
You're at Wendy's.
Rattling around in there.
The pizza's perfect.
We could use a shim.
Oh, God. This I always like. The Gobble Schwanz has these, too. And I think Suarez is P38 because the horn sticks up out of the body. The body is really cool. All right, it fits?
Yeah.
You're happy? Okay, problem 2 out of the way.
Well, we got to plumb it. You got to tell me where we're going to run this.
Okay, that's no problem. Making up 2 little tiny vents, very similar to the way they've done on Spitfires, Cardinals, whatever, so that the tank will totally be isolated from the vents. Once you have the little vents, the nicest part about this is you don't put these in permanently until the plane is all buffed out and polished. Then the last thing, on your way to Tucson, you put a couple of drops of epoxy, put them into the holes. And to get the holes, I like to use this nice little cheesy tool with the little bird. It has a point. It Makes a nice smooth hole. You can't get a hole like that with a drill. Look at that side of the hole. It always comes out looking like, forget about it. All right, hold it tight now. Eventually go frontwards. They gotta be opened up just a little bit more. And the back one, or you could put them the other way around. Now you could open that up with a little hand file or something, just so they press in, but they're not sloppy, so that they stay in position. And I think that'll take care of your venting.
Yeah, that's it.
The cowl on. Let's see how that looks with the cowl on.
Where do we put the cowl?
Oh, okay. That problem's out of the way. Next. Okay, so we know we got to remove that much material. Put that piece back on. Roughly. Okay, now we'll have to see what kind of extension we can make up for this muffler.
Well, how far is the muffler coming out?
Well, it's going to come out. Okay, that's the first half of it, right? Roughly half. Yeah, roughly half. All right, so now we got to take the same amount out the bottom, and that part of it should be in the bank.
Take these off?
Yeah, you're done with that already.
Okay, then we get a better...
All right, here's the deal. You need, what we did, just leave it away so you can see. Now, took one of the mufflers and cut it in half, machined it down, so that it can just act as an extension. And by the way, anytime you have a tongue muffler, you need to make an extension, just saw up one of the extra mufflers. Machine the surface flat, run it on a piece of glass. Now you need the long bolts, and now to put the top cowl on. Let's see how that looks. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't like that at all. All this needs is a carbon fiber spinner backplate. You got the backplate here, right?
In my pocket.
All right. This is the little mold that we made to make the rubber mold for Randy's backplate. This is for a 2 1/4 aero product. This is for the True Turn. Both of these are heavy backplates, so I'm going to make Mike up. I'm going to get rid of this, or just make another box. Make Mike a rubber mold so I can make, and by the way, we'll have these in stock too for anybody using a 2-inch True Turn. You can order up a half the weight carbon fiber backplate in the next 2 or 3 days. Let's see what the front looks like. Hey, you wish they would make a thing on the front of that. I hate the look of that screw. Too bad you can't. I'm just thinking if I could mold up a little part. Yeah, it really doesn't.
Well, where's the Vico?
Makes you crazy. What do you got, the Vico? Yeah, you got bit there. Okay. Oh, the Vico's not going to look good on this anyway.
No, it's too long.
That's for some other Roger rocket plane or something.
Yeah.
We'll make the little rubber mold for this. Then we'll have 2 different sizes of carbon fiber backplates for guys that are using True Turns. Save for the last thing of the day, putting a canopy on. Now Mike has a little ditch carved around here, you can see. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mix some epoxy up, and we're going to put some black dye in it so that any that oozes out inside, it looks like a rubber grommet. It doesn't look like... Actually, we could... Too bad I don't have this color dye. I'll see if I can mix this color dye up. But that would be a lot better than when you see it clear oozing in there. It looks like, yuck.
Should I have painted that ditch that same color?
No, the epoxy. That's the whole idea of the epoxy. Covers up your error. All right, now pull that ruler up there. Let's see if I was right or if I'm wrong. I think this edge here has a little bit of a bow in it. You hold that up there, and I'll run a brand new XL blade in there. It looks like it's just a little bit of bow, or is it my eyes?
Yeah, it's minuscule, but it's there.
Okay. I do a color dye match of yellow and 2 shades of brown to get, I don't know how close that is, Mike, but it's close enough.
Yeah, it's like an olive, but it's close enough.
It's close. Okay, now you're Windexing that up?
Yeah.
When we mix up the epoxy, let's give ourselves the 45-minute cure epoxy on this job.
Okay, now I gotta get something.
To mix in any epoxy, you only want to put enough dye in it to dye the epoxy. You don't want to make 1/3 of the mix. So in this case, when we mix this up, I just want to take the slightest little amount from this palette and mix it in with the epoxy. If you put too much dye in the epoxy, it just weakens it. What we did, we have a big number 26 blade made into a spatula, and Mike's working it down into the groove. We got nice slow drying epoxy here. We got 45 minutes work. Work it right in down there.
Where?
Just let it drool in there. We'll try not to get any on the inside, but if some gets in there, the world isn't going to end.
Oh, the color's great. I mean, you know, really kind of cool.
Do you see why you want to have dye in the epoxy when you do this? And I want to be sure to give Ski Dombrowski the full credit for this. When I saw his lace maker and I saw that little black seam in there, I went wild. I didn't know how he did that. How do you get in there and make that black? Because I always had the epoxy shown. Well, Ski passed the trick on, and I'm passing it on now. So call Ski up and buy him a pizza pie, or buy him a, I don't know, buy him a lace maker. You just get that whole little trough filled, and then what you get to do is drop the canopy in once. You don't get to take it in and out, in and out, in and out. We can run a toothpick around that. So there's epoxy on both sides of that little ditch, and we just drop it in once. That's the whole trick to the whole thing. And don't worry what gets on the outside. Mike's doing this. I'm recalling a great story, and we were all witness to this. If you think I'm not making one word of this up, this is a true story. Jeff Stiefel, who all his life was bald, I think he was born bald. He was very conscious about being bald. Well, he had me babysitting his house one time, and I was feeding his cat while he was away on a vacation. And so Dave Midgley was down at the time, and Midgley will tell you about this story. Midgley was down. True story. And we went into his house to feed the cat. And we looked up, and there he had the body to the plane all made, the canopy, just like at the point Mike has this now, where he was ready to glue the canopy on. And so he had this real nice little pilot with nice black painted hair and no fluffy hair. So he took a Q-tip with some acetone and made the pilot bald. And Jeff put the canopy back on. And when Jeff came home, he didn't notice it for about 2 weeks, and one day he was working on a plane, and he went, my pilot's bald. And Midgley to this day thinks that's one of the funniest stories of all time. Oh, I guess it's funnier if you're not bald. Oh man. Okay, get the little goobers off of there. Okay. Poor Stiefel, yeah. Now Mike's scared that.
I'm not leaving the room.
Mike won't leave the room.
Canopy's on.
He's afraid I'll give him a ball pilot and then sock and hit it with a hairdryer so the epoxy kicks off. You know, if Midgley would have glued that canopy on, Stiefel would have killed him. That comes inside, and twirl the Q-tip as you're rolling it. Roll the Q-tip through it. It'll pick up anything you want to get up on the inside. You don't care about the outside. Just get what's on the inside done. It is one thing. It's really difficult to get a nice canopy to match like that. Just get it to sit right in there. That's all clean. No fingerprints, nothing crazy on there?
Not on the inside.
Okay. Now just get it in nice and slow. You know, all of a sudden you see this bug or something inside.
My hands are dirty. Some of it's on the outside.
Once you get in place, you can wipe it down. Just get whatever's on the inside out. Check that the pilot has all his hair. Ibeamers forever, Estelle. Going right in?
Yeah, outside right in.
All right.
This side's got a little flare, so I gotta...
Okay, what I want to see is when you go from the front, look from the front now. Pick the nose up and look right from the front.
It slipped out.
Okay, look right from the front. See if it's straight, because if it isn't, you'll stick a pin in it and get it straight. Pretty straight?
Yeah.
Okay. All you need to do is put one piece of masking tape. Just hold it. Don't even press it. Just very, very gently. Hold it in place till that epoxy kicks off.
Masking tape, huh? Put two pieces, one on the...
Yeah, it's there so it doesn't shift. Boy, you got the seam inside. Beautiful. There isn't one drop in there.
No, it's nice.
You are a craftsman, I'm telling you.
I learned everything.
Wow, I'll bet you're going to be getting phone calls Monday from the IRS or something.
Somebody.
Boy, I'm lucky I got hair. If I was Jeff Stifle, I'd be bald by now. I hate that being bald stuff. That's great. You're okay, Mike. I don't care what Stifle says about you. Okay, I'm about ready to do my covering by fiberglass. And the first thing I want to do is, because a lot of people have been handling the model, I also, off camera, the last time I was working on this, I sanded the entire fuse with 400. And what I want to do, this is M600, because I'm going to be doing glassing, and I don't know how far back I want to go with the glass, but I want to get, what this does, it gets all the sawdust and all the grease off, so that any epoxy that we put on here is going to get a nice solid tooth. Now we should have canopies later this week from Midley, no guarantee of course. Since I haven't given them a pay raise in 15 years, I guess I can't demand any more. Anyway, it's a good idea to wipe everything down and get all the dust off before we start. We're going to be using the SIG epoxy where one tube is twice the size of the other and all half-ounce cloth. Ordinary SIG half-ounce cloth. Let's see what I do. I try to get a way to get the whole nose sticking out over the end of the table. A couple of rags, sheets or whatever. I've got it up on that little pad. And what it does, it gives me the ability to work this whole nose section in one piece. I can wrap this, put the lap joint on the bottom, and that takes care of one big giant part of the job in one piece. Now, other alternative ways are you can slit. You can make all kind of concoctions. In this case, I want to put some extra up around the nose ring, but this is a good place to start, is to get the nose of the plane out so you can work on it and be comfortable and have some room to mix the epoxy. As somebody who's worked an awful lot with composites in the last 4 or 5 years, let me give you a little dissertation on something. I've bought several brands of cloth from several different manufacturers. SIG is certainly one of the best, if not the best. Okay, one of the things I've really found to be extremely important when you buy cloth is this V-Lon. V-Lon allows it to absorb the resin much quicker than non-treated cloth. And of course, SIG makes 3 layers, 3 different sizes, 1.5 ounces, which is really good if you've got some places on a model where you've sanded the fuselage too thin. In fact, in this, we have some real thin shells on this. May consider using some of this, or for the center of a wing joint. Excellent. They make 7.75. Now remember, it's still got V1. The thing that's important with all of this material is, and I want to make sure I make this perfectly clear. You can use any one of these 3, and the weight difference will be very, very slight in terms of fractions of a grain. The biggest single factor with any of these glass cloth operations is to get as much of the resin squeezed into the wood and flattened out as possible. And to do that, you need a brand new, and I would suggest don't even use one you've even used once before. Get a brand new spreader from SIG. Use these in the shop. I always have a couple of dozen of them laying around, but a couple of clues that'll make a fiberglassing job, anything, a wing, a tail, doesn't matter, is get a brand new one. Also, cut the cloth 2 ways. Get a brand new or very sharp pair of scissors. Second choice is to cut it with a scalpel blade, which I have some Midley sent down, or a brand new XL blade. But the biggest single thing you can do to get the cloth to lay down right is get a brand new, I don't know what they even call these things, spreader. SIG spreader. They're about $50, or maybe they're $1, who knows. Buy getting the cloth to lay right, what happens is the lamination is you want just enough epoxy between the wood and the glass and just enough epoxy on top of the glass to seal it, but you don't want extra globs of it on. When you're all done, it's doubtful you'll even have not even a spoon of epoxy on the plane after sanding. So to get this to lay down real nice, the first thing I'm going to do, and another technique that I have used over the years, is I'm going to basically do the whole job with the very light cloth. And in areas where I need a little extra reinforcement, in this case around the nose ring, maybe up around the canopy, I'll use 2 or 3 layers, but I'll stagger the joints so that one layer of cloth will end here, one here, and I can sand it in very smooth that way. But be aware, other layers, other thicknesses, and always leave. You see how I've used the pack? I always leave the tag inside so I can tell. Because like silk span, it's difficult sometimes to tell which is the .56 and which is the .75. Okay, now what I usually do is just lop off a big piece, and I can try to see how I can fit this in the most effectively, and I can get this right up on the canopy if I want. I can just drape this over for now. Now one of the things I can do, I want to get the cloth to lay down. Okay. Now what I do is I just start to, this is for my own reference, I start to put in a little, the less seams I can get in it, the fewer seams, the better it'll be. That's a good idea to just leave it a little oversized. Remember, we want the cloth to go underneath the filleting material. That's one of my major things I want to try to accomplish. Okay, and this can go all the way up here. Now I can slit this, and then I can lay that on the bottom when I turn this over. Again, there's a little bit of like a pattern making thing going on here. I just happen to have some of these midgley scalpels, I don't know. But cutting over newspaper is a good way to get a reasonable, and again, we're not looking for like a machine shop fit here, rather just to get the majority of the material we don't need off. Now I can slit that so I can pretty much lay this backward, and that'll make a bond on the back. And once I wrap that over, then I'll trim the last little bit. Whoops. Okay, so we have a rough pattern now to work with to get most of this nose in one shot if we possibly can. That suicide is painless. The thing is to get the pattern on here, and I want to see how much I can drape under the ring, because if I can get this whole piece to flow in one piece, when I get to the bottom, I can get all the overlaps and seams on the bottom, and this whole top will be clean in one piece. I hope I'm going to be able to do that. Again, I'll do a little test fit before I mix up the resin. The pain grows stronger, watch it breathe. Suicide is painless. It brings on many changes. Okay, I've got way more than enough overlapping at the back. So what I can do is trim off from the bottom here. I can trim about 1 inch off on each side. Okay, these are these little Teflon tubs, but again, for this kind of a job, any can mix on a piece of cardboard. I just found hooking them to a piece of duct tape makes it a lot easier. Again, the SIG resin, I've been buying this in bulk because I use it on other projects and just putting it in my own tubes. It's always better to mix a little bit more than you need. This is a non-critical mass resin. It really isn't, you don't have to do grain weights with it or anything, but Anyway, once I get ready, I try to get the part clean, get the cloth cut, get everything ready, because then I'm on some kind of a little time window here that I would like to, if I possibly can, get this done in one shot. Now, a couple of other tricks, and the common tricks we always use. Whenever you think the epoxy's totally mixed, mix it for 2 minutes more. Don't fool around. The trick is, as many times as I've mixed epoxy, the biggest sin in epoxy mixing is not to mix it those extra 2 minutes. And you get itchy, you think it's going to start curing out, and the problem is you don't, up along the edges and along the corners, you don't get it thoroughly mixed, and then you don't get a good bond. And in a case of glassing, that's the most important thing, is to get the epoxy mixed. And this is handy to have this. And the trick is to get a good soaking of epoxy on here. If you don't have enough epoxy underneath and it's not soaking into the wood, you're pretty much just wasting your time with this. And I like to use a flux brush to get it on. I don't want to have a thin layer. I want a good, thick, just totally thick layer on it. I'll worry about getting the excess off once I have the cloth in place. Now this is where I just need to pick up a little speed. I'm going right around the bottom. I want to do a wrap and a bond that's far out. Notice I'm getting it right up into what will be the fillet. And that's a significant thing. Transfer as much of the vibration up into the wing. The whole purpose of the nose is to connect the motor to the wing. If you think of that, then everything else seems to make, whoop, there's a nice hair on the brush. And these are just common flux brushes. And if you're not comfortable working a little fast like this, the trick is just do smaller spots and sand out the seams. You really don't lose any strength. It's really just like a finesse thing. Okay, we have our cloth. Now let's see how lucky we can get about dropping this down in place. Usually we're not too lucky. Now even if you get it wrong the first time, it's not a big deal. Get used to using your fingertips. Just pat it down. You can wash your hands. It's not a big deal. Alcohol will take it right off. See, I'm a little too far back. There we go. Get one area and pretend you're working a sunburst pattern. This is the part probably everybody dreads, including me. You want to get that worked up into the fillet. And I just find that the easiest way to do this is just use your fingertips. You try to use brushes and rubber gloves and all kind of everything else, and you just never get all the wrinkles out. And even if you leave the wrinkles in, it isn't a real problem. So you can just pull them right out. It just makes it a little bit easier when you get to the part of the job where you're using a trowel. If you get used to doing this, it's a little technique. You'll find you can cover almost any surface. And if you're not comfortable with this, obviously just use smaller parts. Use postage stamps if you have to. It won't even matter because you'll just have a little more sanding to do as the joints overlap. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to get it right down in that crevice. And I can get the trowel going. This part of the job, if you never down into that floor.
I'll be so alone without you. Maybe you'll be lonesome too.
Okay, using a low setting on a heat gun, hair dryer, whatever you want to call it. I want to work all this epoxy right down into the fillet. Again, I want the fillet on top. Connecting this if possible. This will all get sanded away back here. I don't have to get too fussy back there. Now the epoxy that I've scraped off, I can see it's already starting to kick off, so I want to work with the slow heat right down in that fillet area. Once that dries, that'll sand right off. And the last little bit of epoxy now is going to come off with the heat. And I just keep working this the next 15 minutes to 20 minutes until it absolutely is solid, because I can't move the plane to do the next piece until this piece is dried out. I can wipe the edges with isopropyl alcohol, and these little spots along here I'm going to lay an extra piece of glass cloth on, double it up. Boy, you can really squeeze out with the heat. You can really squeeze out that last little bit of epoxy right around. The good old isopropyl alcohol. Any that drips out onto the silver finish, I want to make a big mess out of that. Any loose threads, this will help pick up the threads. I can just do a real quick wipe of whatever's left. Now we have to let this piece dry. I'll probably have half an hour, I don't know how long, until I can put it back in the fixture and I can work on the next fuselage section. And they're going to be kind of redundant. You can get the cloth cut ahead of time and kind of get set up, but I want to ultimately get any place that I think this body is a little bit on the thin side. And by the way, this now not only is the base of the finish, this has served two purposes. And I can clean my hands up. Any place I have a fingerprint on here, there's one there, one here. This will take care of them right away. Now this is one spot while I have a little bit of epoxy left. Watch the technique here. This is really just a standard way of doing it. Just to stagger the joints so you don't have two, one right on top of the other. This will mostly all get sanded out anyway.
It brings on many changes, and I can take or leave it if I please. The game of life is...
Now, when you do this, you're always thinking, oh boy, that's adding a lot of weight. Oh yeah. When you're all done sanding this and thinning it, it adds almost nothing. But boy, does it add strength. When you see a plane a year old in it, it has cracks all over the nose and cracks in the fillets. Or you chip one prop and that's the end of your plane. Or the fact that you can't run the motor or the prop that you want because of vibration. Everything you can do to stiffen up the nose is going to help. Gives you more choices.
Doesn't hurt when it begins, but as it works its way on in, the pain grows stronger. Watch it breathe.
Now I'm going to definitely have to let this dry because the next piece I want to do is the turtle deck, and I need to be able to move this.
Many changes, and I can take or leave it.
Now it's the V-Lon in the cloth that allows it to absorb the resin very uniformly and easily. And again, the best resin to use is the part where one tube is twice the size of the other. That's the resin that doesn't crack in time. You never use a finishing resin. Finishing resin is just for appearance. It doesn't add the strength of this epoxy. Now I got this fixtured up on paper towels, so well, this is still a little tacky. I want to make this piece go right from the front, right to about the hinge line in one large piece. Get that in. This is where people usually pick the plane up, and this is where they usually put their fingerprints before the plane is, well, it's still a clean plane. You'd wind up with a ring mark or a watch mark or something in it. This is pretty redundant. I'm not going to go over this over and over. I'm going to do this piece as the next piece. And just trim this off around the fillet and just overlap it right at the joint. I'm trying to look to stagger all the joints. I don't want to have all the joints end in even spots. I want to stagger. So there's no stress riser. Everything is, this is taking the engine vibration right to the end of the hinge line in one piece. And this piece, I'm going to trim this off. As soon as this gels up here a little bit, I want to get this edge. Because I know this is going to take a beating. Whenever you take the pipe out of the plane, this whole bottom is going to wind up taking a beating. Okay, so that piece was the next piece. That's on now in one piece. I'm going to kind of let this dry up a little, take a little break, then work that back piece, because this is one of our spots where the shells are real thin. I'm going to try to cover that whole thing in one piece. Next piece I can get this whole piece in one shot back here, I hope. Again, this gets real thin down here. This is the reason I'm glassing it all the way back here. And these shells are really thin, so... What I'll have is a plane that more of the total weight of the plane is composite and less of the weight is balsa wood. But when this is done with the correct technique, it adds almost, like I said, it doesn't add 6 ounces, that's for sure. Because it all gets sanded out, filled in, covered with dope, filled in. It's It's really an amazing amount of strength you can add this way. And what we're looking for, obviously, is a plane that's going to last the test of time, not a one-shot. Next year we build another, you know, I'd like to get 10, 15 years out of this plane if I could. Now this back piece went in one piece. So the only joint I have to deal with is up around here where it'll be no problem at all. Now, I'm going to let this dry. In fact, it's almost time for supper. I ought to do this after supper anyway. And what I need to do, I need to flip it over, and what I decided to do is just do the whole body. Now what we did, the old Brodak Cardinal, we fiberglassed the whole body like this, and it was just totally bulletproof. So what I'm going to do is, once I get back here, I'm going to lay this whole top piece out in one shot, the whole total deck, and that'll cover some of those spots that I really have that are super thin. And then I can leave the rudder probably out. I don't even know, but I'd probably even do the rudder with fiberglass. But see, this is the point. It doesn't even matter at this point. It's such a little bit of extra weight. When this gets all squeegeed out, in fact, here's all the epoxy from the last two parts we did. And once you get a little comfortable using this method, I'm sure you can. What it is you can take 10 grains off by sanding the fuselage and put 2 grains back on with glass, and it's stronger than the original piece was at 10. And plus it makes a rock-hard base for the finish, so that's one of my motives in doing this. It seems a little time-consuming here. In fact, I'm spending the better part of a whole day doing this, but the end result is I want that long-term durability, and I think this is definitely, I've got the lightweight already, and I think that the aggregate of when you take what you lose in wood and gain in glass, the overall piece is lighter and it's stronger. This last piece, I got it all roughed out. Now one of the things I wanted to do here, this right here is where I'm going to have a joint, because as this cloth works its way up here, I don't want to have a bunch of wrinkles in here, in this fillet area. What I want to have is a perfectly, well, as good as I possibly can. I'm going to take another piece and then put a joint here and do the rudder last. But I have this piece just laid in position now, and I can get an idea where the butt joint will be and just trim it ahead of time. And this is one of the places where they all tend to crack from launching or launching with a stooge. Right in here is a good place to make sure get a good joint. Let's see how far up that cloth is. The bottom piece is all the way up here, so I can even trim some more off of this. I always like to do this little pre-fit before I even start mixing up the resin. And I have 2 little pieces to go over the rudder, and that'll be the end of this today. And this has been, I guess, as good as you can do on just a rough end. This is just a rough part. Now once this dries, there's a couple of tricks, is to let this dry a couple of days if possible, and this should sand out beautifully. Famous last words. Famous last words. Okay, a long day, but looks like all the glass is going to dry tonight. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to hang it up by the heating vent up here. Try to get some heat to blow on that. Anytime you're trying to dry glass, dry anything epoxy really, if you can put it up, well that's dried up nice already. If you can get it up by some heat, we still have that soft spot here that I'm a little nervous about. This spot came out nice. And all this little loose trimming, you don't even bother trimming this well until it hardens up, and then just touch it with the sandpaper, it'll come right off. Now, because we're going to have the heat on, it snowed today, this is going to dry up nice. But I have a plumbing job to do tomorrow, so I'm going to be shot most of the day, so this will really sit here probably a day and a half to 2 days before I get back to work on it. And it's real important to understand, the longer you can let that epoxy dry, if you can let that dry even longer, if you can put it aside for a week, put it by heating vent, let it dry, Just makes it easier and easier to do the sanding, and that'll be the next step on this. The next day we get to work on it. Okay, what I decided to do, I want to let that epoxy dry as long as possible. While it's drying, I want to make up, I have two back plates already. I have a True Turn 2-inch, that's Mike Costello's, and a 2 1/4 Randy. I just have a 2-inch Randy now, Aero Product spinner. I want to make the back plate up. These are coming out so nice. I sent 3 up to Noel Drindak to try to see if he could break one or use it or machine it or whatever, so we'll see what happens when we get word back from him. Anybody really interested in Lionel trains, I just got a video on how to lay Gargrave's track, and if anybody would like to borrow it, of course, hey, give me a holler, I'll make you a loan of it. You never want to make one of these. We've been so successful making these. These are a piece of cake. Here's the rubber plug that comes out. Smooth Sil 912 molding rubber. Here's the one for the True Turn. Now I want to add, I'm going to pour this up. This will just give the epoxy some extra time to dry. I'm going to pour this guy up, and that's the 2-inch Randy. So then we can have, you know, some of the stuff. We can have 3 different carbon back plates. Up in a variety of ways with e-glass. I've been laying a piece of carbon around the edge, making them up with e-glass centers. The e-glass is a lot easier to form and curve than carbon, and of course plenty strong. So I've been making them up a variety of ways. And again, I'm hoping Noel Drindak will do a little, you know, he'll tell me if they're strong enough, weak enough, if he can break one. And Mike Costello will be using one on his Ballerina. So by the time flying season comes, we should have, I'm hoping eventually to have a mold for just about every spinner backplate, even a Vico, if I can find a decent Vico that isn't all chewed up. This will add a nice dimension for people who want to get right out of the nose.
A little thing worth mentioning here, a lot of people might not really figure out what I'm trying to build up to with all this molding stuff. The ultimate plan at some point in time, maybe next year, who knows, 2 years from now, is to be able to mold the whole fuselage out of carbon and very high-end resin. If you do it with polyester resin and e-glass, it's way too heavy. People have already tried that, and the results have been that it's too heavy. If you mold it with carbon and epoxy, it gets better. If you do it with real high-end post-cured epoxy, there's a good chance you can make that fuselage either a lot lighter than balsa or the same. Again, what we're trying to do, and we're easing into it little by little, is this fuselage here, the wood is very, very thin, and we're coating everything with e-glass, just as a test to see how practical this is, to see how much of the total weight of the plane we can make composite. And of course, modern planes, they don't make 747s out of wood, so you would think there's a good chance I might be right on that. Anyway, I'm not going to put this on camera. We're going to mold up some rubber, lay these molds up. The whole purpose of this, though, is just to give you a little thought. Now, people follow along with what I'm doing, and maybe they get bored along the way. I know the women get bored. But there's a purpose to all this. And the purpose is, if you're going to work with epoxy, if you're going to work with molding rubber is relatively expensive. You want to practice on little parts first, little parts that aren't before you would mold up that Spitfire wing spar. You want to do some molding rubber where if it doesn't work out so well, you're not out $1,000 or something. Anyway, whole key to using this is Smooth Sil 912. One of the things about this material, though, is no matter how many times I put it on a tape, when you think it's mixed, mix it for another 2 minutes. Just like the same exact thing as epoxy. Let this sit overnight. It seems to need to be mixed, and I've found if you don't mix it, you really run a high risk that the whole part won't cure. The whole mold then is ruined. So I spend a little extra time, more maybe than I have to, just getting this stirred up before I even do the mix. And always shake the catalyst. Don't think the catalyst doesn't have to be shaken either. This is all new technology. You know, the reason I have to go about this at a slow pace, hey, I wish I had somebody I could call up like the Windy that already did this 10 years ago and say, how do you do it? Call up Boeing. You think Boeing's going to tell you how to do this? Forget it. And they mean it too, believe me.
You know, the reason I mention this over and over again is I've had real problems when I haven't stirred up around the edge like this, when I've stirred too close, too fast, I mean, not close enough, I should say. When you start whipping it like it's, you know, a pancake batter, what happens? You fill it full of air bubbles. But what it is, it's a molding technique. I get a lot of calls now on a pretty regular basis from other people that are at least trying this stuff. And it seems like there's a high level of interest in it. And boy, just imagine if a year, maybe 2 years from now, we can really make a full composite fuselage stunt ship. You would be able to buy sheeted wings. Just think of this, sheeted wings, buy the composite fuselage, and basically in one day have a stunt ship. That's something I hope eventually I'll be able to do. Now, Art Adamison's son had one, but I don't know how successful, I don't know how many copies of it he ever made, but I know if we made a standard cardinal fuselage, what would be nice to do would be build an impact wing, build an SV-11 wing, build a Spitfire wing, build whatever, and just make them adaptable that you could switch wings. I mean, do like Paul Walker does, just be able to switch parts of the plane. Or in the event of like a stray or crash, you'd only have to replace the wing. Just take the body and tail and build a new wing. And especially with Ken making those really nice foam wings, he's really doing a nice job, by the way. That shop a year ago, it was right around this time last year that we set that shop up and started it, and he's in full production now. It looks like he's buried in foam over there the last time I was over there. But anyway. Okay, we're ready to do the pour. The things I learned. See, there's some little reverse curves in here. One of the things I learned a long time ago. And this will save you the cost of the molding rubber. Let's hope. Anytime you have a little curve like that, or a little spot where you're going to want the material to sink in, kind of do this before you pour the mold. Let that sit for a minute. After it has time to air out and you can see the bubbles coming up, this will help get you a nice mold. Yeah, boy, I've bought every molding video on the market, and I mean, they really are. There aren't, the information I need isn't on them. I mean, I don't know how successful they are, and I just bought this thing on Gargrave's track, how to lay Gargrave's track. Because on my O-gauge layout, I want to, and it's so nice. I call the guy up at Gargrave's, and he is a sweetheart. He's a really nice guy. Talked to him for about an hour on my nickel, and I said, you know, he says, yeah, I got a great video for you. I said, yeah, how much is it? He says, $14.95, but it's worth it. I said, oh, I don't know, $14.95 is a lot of money. I don't know. Anyway, I'm dying to see what that video is. And one of the things my brother-in-law Roy and I are anticipating is maybe we're going to make, when we make this layout, make a, like Gargrave's laying Gargrave's track part 2. The guy sounded reasonably interested in having that video made if he could do it for, you know, a reasonable budget. Keep in mind, all these hobby guys are on a budget. I mean, if we all had unlimited resources like big companies do, this would all be a whole different ballgame. Now you want to pour a little more of this. By the way, these are special wax-free cups that Bob Martens had donated about a year or two ago. Anyway, I let that gas off. The bubbles rise to the top. You can do this if you think that'll help. But getting that groove real nice is the first part of this. And then the last pour will be right to the top of the mold, and then we put that aside to dry. This landing gear mold, the one Jimmy made up with the Corian, it's just making part after part. We haven't had a bad part come out of this mold yet. Okay, this is dried up now and probably ready to sand. I wanted to show this before time. There's always these little hairs that they'll sand right off. The edges, I never try to trim them. One of the mistakes you can make is to try to trim this while it's wet, and it just tears everything all up. Let's just leave some just hanging in like this. Now I can go right around that with a brand new scalpel blade, ordinary XL blade, doesn't matter. And then I can start sanding this. Now there's definitely, when you sand it down, there's always going to be some spots you missed or a gap that isn't right or something. So what I'm prepared to do is if I find those gaps, like I know in here there's a spot where I don't have cloth coverage, before I go to the next step, I want to make that little patch. So that the whole, once this is like the first sand out, get that all the rough spots out. And another thing, just tearing this off with a sanding block is the easiest way to do it. Looking over this, I don't see any giant runs or any giant gaps. This is probably the worst run on the whole plane back there, where some of it drooled down, and that was where the heating vent was hitting it. So it wound up running there, but even that's not a problem. So let me get some sanding blocks going, and let's see if we can get this roughed out today.
Idea that you can do the bottom first in case there's a problem. I always do a little test spot to see if the epoxy is powdering. If it's turning into chewing gum, you may as well forget it. Now here's a really good tip. This is one worth its weight in gold. This is one of those you say, ooh, once you try this, you wonder how I didn't think of it earlier. Use the undercut block and leave the sandpaper on. The sandpaper that's on here, even though this is sticky back paper, it'll allow you to do this. Each time you take the paper up, you can use another edge, because in essence, you're only using the edge of the paper here. So you'll get a lot of mileage out of the paper, and I know everybody in the world of control line stunt likes to save money. It's no secret. So I like to do a little test on the bottom now. The object is to get as much of the resin sanded off, but not cut the cloth. If I cut the cloth, I'll have to go over and make a patch. So let's just get a little look at. Is it turning to powder? That means it's probably ready to sand. Putting it by a heating vent or a radiator will help tremendously. Another way that I've done in the past when I was at the other house, I had some heat lamps. And I used to just hang heat lamps from it and let it cure. And it cures very fast with a heat lamp. You can cure it in 10 minutes. But then your working time goes down. Now, as long as it's powder, now I really have in front of me, a couple hours anyway, of very, very detailed sanding. I want to get as much of the detail, and I do all the testing by hand. I can feel little spots that aren't just right. If I go through, it's not a big deal to make a patch. Yeah, I really feel like with this molding program that we've had for the last 4 years, that we're probably sneaking up on a point where we can legitimately start to envision what a composite airplane would look like. And I really don't think a lot of other people, maybe in the world of RC, they do it commonly, but in the world of control line stuff, the only one I know that's really done that is Art Adams and Son. And again, if that was an engine, it was a 40 ship. If it was a plane that was powered by a 50 or 60, you might even get away with it with the heavier body. But I know with the idea of this whole technology is to get the wood as thin as possible and get as much glass on, so that more of the total airplane is composite and less of it is wood in the final analysis.
A flat surface like this. If you try to cut the cloth when it's wet, that's a mistake. What you want to do is just let it dry. You see what happens? You can just resurface this. It's going to come off little by little by little. Wherever there's a big blob, like there obviously is here, might want to tear it. Up here we have a little bit extra. Now I like to keep a vacuum around, I'll tell you why. I don't like breathing all this little stuff in. And every 5 minutes or so I just vacuum up. This here I can just use the sanding block. Then I can get the cowling and redo my cowling fit as I go along. Because again, I want to have a nice cowling fit here. That's a real important part of this whole thing. See how the surface is coming right back into flat? Just takes a minute or two to get it right back to where it was. And the fact that it's powdering off makes it real easy.
Now I've been working on my cowl fit, just putting the cowl back and forth, picking up any high spot. Always, most important thing when sanding out anything, break the edge. Even in here, don't let an edge get real razor sharp, or else paint will peel from that edge, and then you start turning the plane into a candle wick. And again, I say this over and over again, I vacuum up constantly. This stuff, it's really not a great idea to be breathing any of it, let alone every 5 or 10 minutes, take a little break, run the vacuum. It really makes doing the job a lot more practical. And use your finger constantly to find high spots and always break the edge. Although with those rules in mind, you should be able to get really world-class finishing. And you can see eventually you really get the powder going here, and you really do have to vacuum up constantly. At least I do anyway. And it's just snow and epoxy here. And when you see that, you know you're in. Now, I always sand with a sanding block as much as possible. Contour it off. Try to use the undercut edge to get right up into the fillet area. Real important. And this is just going to be time consuming. I'm going to work my way down the fuselage, then flip it over and do the top. Allow a couple hours for this. Have a cup of coffee in the middle of it. It's tedious and redundant. But it's just snowing. It's just literally snow and epoxy. It comes right off. And then you know now you have a hard surface. You can pick up any edges on this. And any place you sand through or you miss, you just make a little patch and let it dry overnight. And tomorrow I'm sure we're going to go through in some spots here. But the whole outer skin of this is now composite. And I'm sure we're still well under the limit as if we used normal thicknesses of wood. And we've got, it seems like a lot more. This nose is like a brick, you know what. I see what I do. Once I wear that edge of the paper out, I want to rotate this into a new edge. Especially when I'm working down by a fillet like this. And you can see how much of the epoxy ultimately you get off. When you're all done, you really only use about 1/100th of the material that you ultimately mix. And when it's done right, it just turns to powder, sands beautifully, and makes a really rock-hard base. You'd never have it that hard with any other material. Now, I got most of the bottom done. And I'm looking at this. Now this is a razor edge, and what I did, I just lapped the glass cloth together. So what I'm going to do is real carefully flip some of this off with a brand new XL blade. Because I want to sand that point in, and I put some glass up on top here. I want to get these areas as rigid as possible. Some of the people that wind up launching my plane in the course of a year, I mean, like Mighty Joe Young, I always see they have their hand here with a watch and a big ring that says, something. So by having this glass come right to a point, I can really feather, let me show that up close, I can really feather that edge in real nice. I'll wind up getting the glass right in there. I want to have these edges as hard as possible. All these edges, I have double glass this. This is really going to take a beating right in here. Any plane that lives for any length of time really takes a beating in there. Then the next step is going to be, I'm going to take a little break before I do this, next step will be to get the tailback sanded in and that one soft spot I have on the other side, see what I'm going to do about that. I'm going to work my way right up to the nose, and that's probably all I'm going to get done today. I've had so many phone calls today, but this is really, really coming out very nice. I just heard from Midgley, we'll probably have our canopies later this week. He's already run the tests and they look beautiful, so give me something to look forward to. Whole roll of sticky back sand just happens to have the right radius to work right in here. Yeah, I just want to take the glass off. I want to get up to that hard edge of the wood. I really didn't plan it this way, but I'm always looking around for something to use for a sanding block, and if I can just leave that last little bit
Boy, that'll really make it nice and rigid. Yeah, that's good. And believe me, I get tired at the end of the day like this. It's always good to change position. I like to put the plane, if I can, point the nose at the floor and kind of work on the back end of it just to change my arm position, because after a while, if you've ever worked in a body shop as a sander, you'll know how tired you get from being in one position. Boy, that leaves like a razor edge on it. That's going to really work well. I'm impressed with that. And I wish I could take credit for thinking of this. Polywogs or tadpoles or whatever they are. This particular shape here, and I like to keep moving it around the piece of sandpaper. I don't like to keep it in one position too long. This one just happens to be perfect for getting in right in that fillet area. Now, there's always a choice you have. If you happen to sand through the glass floor, you can always, if you're looking to just get on with it, you can take a little CA and put it right on the edge where you've sanded through. A couple of layers of CA will harden up the wood. Then at least you won't have a hard spot and a soft spot. But the best of all worlds would be to make a little patch, because then the density of the two materials would be exactly alike. And having all these little tools, boy, this came with that Porter cable sander. Even if you just use the tools by hand, it's worth it. Well, we're closing in on having this all sanded out. What I like to do, believe it or not, it's 4 o'clock. This took the better part of a day to get this sanded, but we had a lot of phone call interruptions. Okay. So, the trick here is if I get this finished, it'll already be dark outside. I'll have to take it outside and put one coat of Rodak Clear on this before I cover it with tissue. So I'd like to get 1, 2, maybe 3 coats of clear. I'll get one on before I go to sleep, which will probably be 11 or 12 o'clock. And then I can come back tomorrow and tissue the body. And I get the tissuing done now. In case you were thinking, well, gee whiz, you don't have to tissue the body. Yeah, you don't. That's true. But one of the things I've noticed, if you don't tissue over the glass, in warm weather you can get the print of the glass coming through. And there's very little to cover as far as mistakes go here. So the tissue job should go very, very quickly. And again, once it's flat, there should be almost no seams to sand out at all. Before I put the clear on it, I want to wipe everything down with M600. I'm sure I got thousands of useless little fingerprints on here. I don't want to get it wet, I just want to, and I will get in by the pipe tunnel when I do this. The only problem is I'm going to have to do it out in the garage, needless to say. And it's cold out there! Anyway, always, nothing bad happens with a good wipe down with M600 anytime you handle a plane. Just keeps it nice that you don't wind up burying silicones and things from your hands. Well, I got a coat of dope on this, all the glassed areas, and I'll wait till just before I go to bed around 11, put another coat on, and bring it in the morning. It'll be ready to tissue. Okay, this morning she dried up beautifully. Now, first step in this is I want to fuzz this out. You always get a little bit of dust. There's 2 coats of clear, Rodak Clear, 50-50. Just want to dust it down with 320 by hand, feeling for any spots and you never know when you're going to find a spot that just has a little, you can feel a seam. We're still working on this area right here. Just not perfect. I'm not happy with it. What I'll probably do when I get an area like this is I'll double tissue this and then block sand it in. It just has a little bit of an area I'm not happy with. And I'll work on that as I work on the canopy. Back here when I tissue this, I'll bring this tissue down to near the fillet, bring this up near the fillet, but no tissue in the fillets. Never tissue to fill it. My God, that's death warmed over. They pop when you don't tissue them. Anyway, I'll double tissue around the nose here. Now, one of the theories is when you're doing this is try to do it so none of the seams where the glass seams end the tissue in a different spot. You don't have to have the seams overlap. Now, the other point is if you decide you could just skip this step and put 2 or 3 coats of filler on here and this would be fine. But what I've seen happen from time to time, and I've mentioned this already, is when a plane gets old and it's in the sun, you can see the weave. You've probably seen that on other models. And then you buff it out and it comes back, and when you tissue it, that problem is history. So I'm going to get medium tissue, Brodak dope 50/50, and start making up pretty much the same shape patterns, but just avoiding having the overlap seams. And even if you did the whole thing in postage stamps, it wouldn't matter. The seams sand right out. I'm sanding this out. I got to share this story with you. This is one of the truly great stories in the world of stunt. Well, first thing, while I'm doing it, I'm going to sand this out because my object here is Karen goes to work in the morning, and this may be something you can use. As soon as she goes to work in the morning, if I have doping to do inside the house, I shut the heat off, open all the windows on the first floor, get a fan going outside, get the doping, and then get it outside. Now, what happens is by putting it out in the garage, it takes a long time to dry. It takes 3, 4, 5. Sometimes it doesn't dry all day when it's below freezing. And I got to tell you, absolutely, you will laugh when you hear this. What happened is the last 3 or 4 years, we have a real good relationship with our neighbor next door. He has a 2-family house. They have young tenants upstairs. And he goes away he doesn't like being here in the winter. I can't hate him for that. He goes to San Diego every year for his summer, his winter. And I get paid to watch his house. So I take the mail in and shovel the snow and whatever. And I get a couple of bucks for that. So what happened is, I'm in the middle of this last night. I'm out there and I'm putting this thing in the garage and it's freezing, and I'm coming in, I'm saying, what am I, crazy? There's a whole half of a house next door that's got heat on. Let me go put it over there. So I go over to his house. I have the key. I go in. The tenants are upstairs, so I'm kind of tippy-toeing because this stuff, you don't want to, it smells like dope. So what I do, and Karen says, don't tell anybody you do this. So of course I come down and put it on video. So what happens is, and really this is absolutely true, I go over there and I'm looking around. Where are the heating vents? Well, I had to move his couch, I had to move his whole tree, I had to move to get my plane by the heating vent. Now the plane was really, it had 2 coats of clear on it, so it was really nice and odoriferous last night. So, I know you're going to laugh when you hear this. About midnight, the tenants who have my phone number, because I deposit their rent check, they call up and say, you better come over here. We smell something burning. So I got to get dressed and go over there and pretend I'm checking the apartment out and everything. Said, oh, no, probably some food from the garbage dropped out of the garbage bag or something. And meanwhile, this plane is in the living room smelling like you can't believe. So this morning I got up real early, went over there while it was still dark out so they wouldn't hear me taking a plane out. Now can you imagine? I'm just thinking, we're going to have a big spray party Saturday. We got 4 or 5 guys coming over to spray planes. And we're going to try this Mike Kajeski heater. But can you imagine? Now poor Bill comes home unexpectedly. Karen says, yeah, I'll come home unexpectedly. He'll open the door to his apartment. All the furniture's moved. Mike Kajeski's plane is hanging there. Guys are spray painting. Oh, God. That is a true story. That is absolutely true. Anyway, 320 paper. I just want to fuzz this off. And I laugh when I say it. Bill is such a nice guy. He watches my pond when I go away. I don't want to sand it. I just want to fuzz it. Break all the edges always. Just do a little defuzzing here. And this is all you need. And you see, as soon as you know it's coming off as powder, it's only like 8 hours later, it's powdering right off. That is so true, and I'm telling you. I felt a little guilty about it, and then the second part of it was I said, well, it's better than Karen having an allergy attack, so I don't know. That's really funny. Anyway, our friend Elliot Scott, who has taken all of the Brodak and Windy products to England and opened up a hobby business, we're going to be
probably there's a really good chance we're going to be going to England real soon. Obviously, I'll try to get some videotape of the English guys. We're going to have a little stunt seminar, and Karen, of course, will go doll hunting. Now, that's all I want to do. I don't want to start going through in spots. Just a light dusting, but look at how this powder's off. Try this with other materials. Forget it. Now, the reason I say this is you don't want to sand all the clear off, but you just want to get the fuzz off. It's just that little fuzz that you need to get off. Boy, if you can pick one good tip up off of the video, and it's a tip that really is worth its weight in gold. All of these reverse curves and things, at this point in time, you really can't use a sanding block. They're all curved areas. But one of the things you really can do is use your finger to find imperfections. When things are in silver, you can see with your eye where an imperfection is. When things are in wood and wood tones and covered with cliff, you really can't see those. You really have to go after them by feel. As strange as that seems, I know there's a spot right in there I'm not happy with. Again, the reason I'm trying to go so fast is because I like to get this out of the house as soon as possible. And I even found a candle, one of these Yankee candles that I burn upstairs to get rid of the smell. Because there's just some jobs that it's just like doing this is really difficult outside. It may warm up later, I don't know, but right now it's definitely not going to dry outside. Maybe we'll be using Bill's house for the next month, I don't know. That is so funny. That is really a true story, too. And Karen is so adamant. She says, what if Bill comes home and he walks in his living room and you and Kajeski are in there and well, anyway, that is really the best tip I can think of, is just use your hands, not your eyes, when things are in raw wood. Area already that I could make a lot better on the next plane. One of the things right now, it's a real pain in the neck to finish inside that pipe tunnel. I mean, you really have to get in there. What I've been doing is taking sanding sponges and getting in there with a stick and moving them around. I haven't come up with a good answer for that yet. But on the next plane, what I think I'm going to do is wherever the pipe tunnel is, before I glue the block on permanently, I'll finish and tissue inside there. That'll add some strength and very little weight, and get it sanded smooth, because it really does look ratty in there. Even though you're not going to see it, these are the kind of things you have to make a decision. You know, if nobody's going to see it, yeah. But I just think I would feel better if it was all done, and I could have done that ahead of time. And see, one of the things you can always pick up from the tapes, even if you're not building Spitfires, is the sequence of things that comes out to be a time saver or a money saver or whatever, like putting the hinges in last or doing this finishing in silver before it's in place. Can you imagine right now if we had to go and finish, and cover the wing, no way. The sequence of things is always a good thing you can pick up right off the video. But finishing inside that pipe tunnel, I missed that one. It's like the best solution, and believe me, this is a screw up on my part, is to take one of these I call them sanding sponges, just shove it right down. And by the way, Dan, I know you haven't got this point done yet. You're not at this point. If you are, finish the pipe tunnel. Jeez, boy, this is a pain. It's because I haven't really made a from the get-go pipe ship in a long time that you forget little steps like this. On the original tweener and things, I think I did this ahead of time. Maybe I had more brains back then. Or as Karen would say, and believe me, all these edges have to be radius. Karen hits the nail right on the head. We're just getting old. But this looks like a good alternative to getting up inside. An even better alternative, like I said, is just doing this ahead of time. You really do want to have that fuel-proof if possible. And last night when I was out there, I put plenty of dope in by where the tank goes, so that's not a problem. I can get in there real easily. But this area here is really a nuisance. It is the kind of stuff, even if you get one good idea off a video, it's worth enduring watching me suffer here. Actually, this doesn't work too bad. I can get up in there, too. And these little reverse radiuses, it's good. The sanding pad is good. Thing is, the Brodak dope is so much quicker than using other materials that you start getting impatient. I mean, normally I'd be sitting here suffering 3 days waiting for dope to dry before it would powder off. Now I'm getting so that, well, the truth is I'm really getting spoiled. I want to be able to finish a plane a week.
Well, all these radiuses are coming out real nice.
Next step is I want to wipe everything down. Them 600 again. It seems like I overkill this all the time, but it really is worth it to get all the little dust in, especially if you're going to be trying for that best finish of your life. And of course, that's what I guess we're always trying for that. Anyway, I want to cut up some of the tissue. Again, I'm just going to make sure I don't get all the joints lined up, overlap them. That's the easiest way I know of to keep it, that they don't come through in the final finish. M600 everything down, and boy, you can see the junk that comes off of here. One of the things, before I even start this, and this is a good tip if you're doing a pipe ship, I want to get some of this down into the pipe tunnel. Again, boy, I really could kick myself for not finishing this ahead of time. There's areas in here where it's just not convenient to get. This is the live and learn part of this hobby. Anyway, the other trick, the tip or whatever that I've used, I've already done this. I haven't put it on video yet, but it's, a lot of people mix up a pound of epoxy and pour it into the tank area. I don't think that's necessary. What I like to do is hold the plane in this dimension though. Let me get the brush. And then I can take the brush, and of course if you have to, take a long stick and tape it to the end. I can get right down in there. And now the dope runs down into the pipe tunnel, down into the tank area. And this can be drying while I'm doing the tissuing. And once the plane is flown, then this, of course, it's oily and it's hard to get the bond, the real good bond that you would like to have on it. Right down all the way in there, boy. And I can do the pipe tunnel this way too, is just let it drip and come out the deck. You know, you learn one little thing, and sometimes you think it's a very small, insignificant thing, but it winds up saving you 20 hours, or it winds up that the time you spend, you're not using on other things like you could be doing the finish or something else. So this is the only way I can see to do this now. Well, I think how easy this would have been to do this ahead of time. And yes, I do remember on a tweener getting like at least the base of the finish on here, so that I really only had to put 1 or 2 coats on when it was done. Hey, it's live and learn time. Okay, that about takes care of that. Now I'm going to try to do the bottom first. Try to do as few pieces as I can, as few seams as possible. I really think you need to put anything in here other than Brodak dope. And I have seen planes that have the 2 ounces of epoxy up here with the idea in mind they think that's going to fuel-proof it. Well, you fuel-proof the outside of the plane with dope. Why would you need to have epoxy in here? I don't know. Maybe a logic I don't understand yet. Anyway, I want to pre-cut as much of the tissue, wet it with Windex, just the way we do the outside, but for sure have all of this, at least 2 or 3 coats on this. Happens that the pieces that are left over from doing a wing usually work out being just the right size. I want to line up those 2 joints there. Okay, when the tissue is a little damp, I want to end this. I'm trying not to line up these seams. Again, that's the criteria here. Get this centered. And this is a good place you can use up all the scraps that you have from other pieces. Medium weight tissue, SGM002, SIG tissue. And it really doesn't matter how many seams you have, as long as ultimately you can sand them all out. But it's always best if they don't overlap, that's for sure. Now in this case, I know this one is going to be here. And I can just rough this in right now. I don't even have to get this close right now. Because if I miss a spot, I can just make a patch.
Seal it.
Now again, it's so tricky to get this in here. Just keep picking it up and laying it down. Pressing it down with my bare hand, always the best way I know of to get the wrinkles out. Again, these edges don't have to be perfect, because if I miss any spot, I can just go back in and make a little patch. And if it overlaps, we'll sand out the overlap and you won't see it. So. Now a lot of times if you know you're going over a complex curve, you're better off just laying it down and picking it up and stretching it, laying it down, until you get it out. And if you can't get that last little wrinkle out, just slit it and let it overlap. In this case, we got a complex shape around a pipe tunnel. You know, the first time you do this kind of stuff, it really gets you think you're intimidated by it, but then after about 3 times you say, big deal. And I still like to use my bare hands. That's always the best way to jiggle out as many of the wrinkles as possible. The ones you can't, now in this case there's one up here we're not going to get out. I can just run a slit down that way. Pull this one up this way. Pull this one over that way. And that slit will, in the final finish, will be sanded out. You'll never even see it. The last thing just before I go to the next sheet is I take my bare hands, press out as many of the wrinkles. The ones that don't come out, slit them and overlap them. Any place where there's a reverse curve getting up there or fill it, I just trim the tissue away. I don't want any tissue turning into a reverse curve on me. I notice I'm doing the bottom first just to get build up a little technique. You can always do that on anything you do, always do the bottom first if possible. Now I know I'm going to have to cut that up by the wing. I'm going to have to cut it by the tail. I can pull these wrinkles out one by one. It really isn't and I do it all the time, and then I get real. About 3/4 of the way through the job, I know I'm fooling myself. To try to do this in these big giant pieces is really a lot more work than it's no big deal to sand out the seam. So, but I always start off thinking, let's see if I can do it. And halfway through, I say, I wasted my time for here. I try to get out even the smallest wrinkle. And anytime you have to, you can take a little tissue just with some thinner on it. Even if it gets hard and you see that little wrinkle. Now this will come out pretty good, not bad. And just as the dope starts to go off, what I like to do is trim the tissue off too. This isn't dry enough yet, so let me get a little extra dope on this. You're always working in this time window. I don't know why, but so many people are afraid to just put their hands down there. Press those wrinkles out. Now let's see if that holds. the reason I don't like to leave these little bays drying is sometimes they put tension on and put a little wrinkle in as they're drying. Even if you just get the majority of it out. And you go back the next day and look at how it's drying up, and there's this big wrinkle that wasn't there the day before.
You taught me how to love and to know. You say that we are fools. I'm a fool.
You can always go back and soften it up with a little bit of thinner if there's a wrinkle coming through. You'd like to get, in an all-perfect world, you'd like to get like most of the wrinkles out before it actually dries. Really, once you pick up that little technique, it's really no big deal to do this. It really does. You really can go over almost any shape reasonably. The only place you don't want to have tissue is where the fillets come together. That last little bit of tissue will pull up and you'll have a wrinkle or a bubble there.
What I try to do is, I notice it's going to be enough of a good camera angle here, is just run the fillet line.
Great! See, the blades, they don't go dull on this. They just clog up with dope and then you can't get a nice neat cut. Anyway, it looks like we've lucked out weather-wise. Now I can see the score on here. Really have lucked out. It looks like we may even be able to leave it in the garage instead of Bill's house today. Oh, now I got, this can go down. I'll put a little patch in there. Let me see where the joint is here. Joint is pretty much right there. Anyway, we're going to go like heck to get just do the turtle deck, double tissue over that little soft spot, make the patches and get outside. Get this out of here so we can keep the smell in the house to the minimum for Karen. And I hope you've gotten some idea or some clues or something you can use, something you can put in the bank. I know whenever I watch one of the home shows or Norm Abrams or somebody that's got a skill that I would like to steal, beg, borrow, or steal. Shouldn't say steal, I should say use. One of the things I always try to do is just watch how he does things. And that's how you get a nice tissue job on a fuse. That's not the worst job in the world.
Alright, this is going to sit out here and dry the rest of the day. I got 2 coats of clear on there already. And it's just sitting out there drying away. In today's mail, some photos from Nancy Bocamino. They gave the awarded Dick a very special award here, they call it the Schlackers Award. It's really an award just for Dick. This is one of the Fox Black Case engines. But he doesn't know, Dick pretty much single-handedly runs that whole operation, maintains the field, does all the jobs nobody wants to do. This picture looks like it's a little overexposed. Looks like a little Mustang and a Pen Award. Anyway, they have kind of a fun fly between the Schlackers. I call it a fun fly anyway. Very low competition. And they all seem to exchange the awards and give the awards out and share them pretty readily. Here's the crew. Murder is real. And Nancy, of course, the I don't know what we call Nancy, the photo op of the year award here. Anyway, I'm just going to run these photos by that Nancy sent in. I'll pass them on to Tom Morris. Now, it's a sad note. Sad, I don't know why I'm laughing. Sad, her husband, I guess you know what's coming next. Here's the engine, here's the cylinder, here's the crankcase, here's the muffler. It looks like she said they're having the last rites for it. Now see, if I was there, Nancy, I would have just fixed that and we'd be flying in a half an hour. Anyway, I'm not sure. She didn't say in the note if they did an autopsy, they repaired it, or they dumped it. I don't know. But anyway, Nancy, thanks a lot for keeping me up to date on the schlockers. And Dick Kurth, you have my complete respect. You're okay. I don't care what Nancy says about you. Today, we've had real good luck here. Well, we got 3 of them here. I pulled the first one of these. This is the 2-inch Randy Aero Products backplate out. This one really is nice. You can see how nice that Teflon paper leaves the back. But see, I still have an air pocket in there. I still have to work on getting rid of that air pocket. And of course, there's several ways of doing this. But one of the things I thought about doing is laying a little thread of carbon fiber right around the edge. The next time I run this mold, there's the piece here. In the rubber, that little piece there, I can pack that down with a toothpick. So that's really one of the key things I have to work on. But it's fun developing these little parts. And no matter what, you're always going to have, in the first couple of parts, here's a terrible one. And these are just throwaway parts, but little air bubbles and things. Now, one of the good ways of getting rid of this, here's one that has just a few. One of the ways when we start making real production parts, one of the ways of getting rid of these little pockets is to take that Cabasil and make a little paste to go on the edge here. And that's one way to do it. But for right now, I would say the amount of time and energy, and we're using up all the resin that we normally have. We have 3 different back plates we can make now. And we're closing in on having them that they're, they'll be usable on a plane. Mike Costello's going to take the first one down to VSC and see if he can win VSC, or at least use it anyway. Well, what I wanted to do this morning before I go out there, I threw a little bit of silver on this. This is Brodax silver, just to see how many imperfections still needed to be filled. Of course, the silver shows you the imperfections. Let's see, there's a couple of them here. There's a little crack over here I didn't see before. And that's the purpose, of course, of the silver. But we'll get these little spots touched up, get another coat of silver on here. And I want to spend probably the bulk of today sanding out the tissue. Boy, it dried up nicely over in Bill's house. I still can't believe I did that. Anyway. This silver just on fiberglass. You can take the silver and just spray right on fiberglass. It really doesn't even need any real preparation other than final sanding. And let the silver fill in. You can see any imperfections that are in there. The silver basically fills them right in. Okay, that's ready to spray, and that's really probably the first coat of silver on here. Picked up all a little. There's a little crack here. I gotta stick some CA in there and sand that back down. But that's what the silver does. It shows you all these little errors you probably never would see if it was in any color other than silver. Little CA, that'll soak in there, and then I'll just sand it down. But you don't even see those cracks when it's because it's paper thin there. Now the first thing I want to see is any of these heavy seams I want to get down with a sanding block and some 320. You'll immediately see at this point in time if you've missed the spot with the tissue, and of course you can just leave it. You can fill it in with filler, or you can put a little patch of tissue. But wherever there's a seam, you'll see as soon as you sand it, it'll come right through. And if you just be very careful about it, you can sand it so that the double seam will just kind of fade away, and within the next coat or two of
dope, it'll just disappear. It almost disappears instantly here. Any of the high spots will come right up. And I'll be real careful about detailing this first. Obviously, you're looking for powder. Sometimes it's good at this point in time to just take a little break and really detail this out. Get this as nice as you can, because from this point on, there'll be no real heavy changing of the shape. You're pretty much just going to be putting a finish on. Wait, the seam is gone. You can't even feel it. And it doesn't take long. And all of these curves. Just takes, at this point, I get impatient anyway. I want to start doing the final detailing, and we're in a little break of relatively warm weather here where I would really like to be able to get some silver spraying done if I could. You know, what I wanted to do, I wanted to firm this up. This shell is still very weak. This is just a temporary piece, and I'm going to tack it in here until I get the canopy mounted. Because what happens, as I'm sanding this, you can see I'm sanding through in that soft spot, and I'm trying to get that contour real smooth with a sanding block. And this is just a piece of scrap I just basically did a little trimming on. And the reason I didn't want to have that when I'm pushing on this, these shells are so flimsy. They're really very, very soft wood, and I want to get that area as smooth as possible. So just having this in position until I get the canopy in, this is really here just as a, well, kind of a temporary bulkhead, I guess. And hey, by the way, just wanted to mention, this Gargraves track, because I'm getting ready to plan a layout, this was a $14.95, can you imagine that? And there are a lot of good tips. This guy really knows his stuff when it comes to O-gauge railroading. There will be more on that in the future, but that's a Gargraves track, an excellent video. And like I said, Craig is moving out in 41 days, so we're already planning this. This is an excellent little video. Let me put the little name on here. And I've spoken to him. The man is a real gentleman. He's really sounded like he's somebody who really has his heart and soul in the right place. Phone number 315-483-6577. And be prepared to, when we start doing our layout, getting little bits and pieces of it on the video. This little piece really firms that up. And now I can really get the curve in here with the sanding block. Yeah, I'm trying to do almost all of this with the sanding block, and because I have that reverse cut, I can go right up into the wing joint. This is a part of the last couple of days I've really put my patience to the test, because I guess like a lot of modelers, once I get to this point, I want to start seeing the plane, you know, get some paint jobs and some roundels and some invasion stripes or whatever on, but and again, that makes, I really have to admit, I should have done that earlier. And now I can get both sides of this real conveniently. I can bear down on it. And what I did, I made this piece from the actual canopy mold, so you would think, not really, no. I may have a good fit when it comes to, maybe sometime this week we'll get the canopies from Midgley. It'll really be nice. And see, this is the thing now with this video, this Gargraves video. I've never worked with Gargraves track. All my layouts have been with Lionel track. So what do? I call up, I order the video. It's $14.95. How convenient. And it's loaded with great ideas. I've tried to save $500 in throwing track away by not trying to think I know it all ahead of time, by just being willing to take some lessons. This guy is excellent, by the way, on that Gargraves video. Again, your hand doesn't lie. Your hand will find all these little mistakes. You really don't want to do too much around the canopy and go too thin right now. Boy, that dope just powders right off. It's so nice. Now the last thing, before I go get another coat of dope on this, I want to hand sand everything out with 400. Even though I've done it with a block, I want to follow it up with a hand sanding, just to scratch out anything that's in the valleys. Always finish it with a hand sanding, don't finish it with a block. The block roughs it out, the hand sanding finishes it. I'll tell you, the more I work with this material, the more I love it. Powder City, it's just so nice to work with. Last thing before putting the clear on, I like to wipe the whole model down with M600. Gets any fingerprints, even the part that I haven't touched, just to keep it contamination free. Always a cheap investment of a couple of minutes. And every day that goes by, it gets a lot more like an airplane and a lot less like a bucket of parts. Always nicer to work on an airplane than parts.
Okay, ready for the next coat of clear.
An unauthorized doll purchase.
Well, she's not unauthorized.
Let's see, how's she look?
I don't know.
Well, I'll pick the
Oh my God. Oh, she's gorgeous.
Oh my God.
Oh, she's beautiful.
This doll's as big as can.
Oh, she's 34 inches, so she's almost as big as
Now the deal is I get to make a big old gauge layout. I can
Yes.
buy all the guardrails track I want as long as I buy you $1 a month, right?
I'll settle for two.
Look at this Daliachka. Holy man.
Oh my God. She's got a lot of cord weight, huh?
I can hear the people watching this video saying, now, Jack, forget the dolls. Show us the trains. Show you like trains better than dolls.
Right, they're all the same.
It's like a guillotine here.
Oh God, look at how she's...
I'll bet even Buzz Brodak wants to see his doll. This doll's like life size.
She is, she's a toddler.
What? You're hooked on her face there.
No, not who's on her face, that's her
Oh
name.
my God, carbon fiber doll.
Wendy, you're a handsome guy. I don't care what John Brodak says about you.
Yeah. This is Karen's equivalent of Gargrave's track. Look at this.
I have to get scissors to cut it.
Oh! Okay, now come on, tell me.
Beautiful or what?
Wendy, you are the greatest husband in the world. You can buy all the Gargrave's track you want.
Look at her. Isn't she beautiful?
She is a nice doll. Look, I want to show this to Buzz. I want Buzz Brodak to give me the full doll approval on this.
She's...
Buzz, is this an approved doll? Can we bring this doll to Brodak's contest?
I don't think so.
Oh, nice Daliachka.
She is. Thank you very much.
Happy Valentine's. See, people don't see my romantic side. They only see my model airplane side. And I really am a romantic person, and I love dolls. Look at this Daliachka. Holy mackerel. So there you have it. Don't ever say Wendy didn't buy his wife a nice Valentine present, baby.
That's beautiful.
I'm telling you. Cute baby. Okay, now this morning what I did, I brought this in out of the garage. This has two coats of clear over the silk span, 2 thin coats. But it's dry out for the better part of the day. In fact, let's see, it's 2 o'clock. It's been drying for about 5 hours. So I want to see now if I'm going to be ready to sand this out. Once I feel like that I can sand this, usually the test, there's always a good test. And I've gone over this so many times. A lot of people miss this test. If you've got this, especially by a heating vent, and you can take some sandpaper. Now, during this sand out, I really don't need a sanding block. I really just need to fuzz this off, dust this off. Again, if you've got that powder. And I want to answer a question. There's a question 2 or 3 people have sent in already that have been starting to use Brodak dope, and every one of them says, oh, gee whiz, I can buy this 3608S thinner for about $15 a gallon, and it's real cheap. Can I use it? Well, I don't know. Now, I'm not going to say you can't use it, but one of the things that you do not get, if you take Brodak dope and mix it with 3608S, you don't get this instant powdering. I've noticed that, and I don't know why. I honestly and truly don't know why. But I'm going to try to check that out. And another thing, somebody mentioned about the price of the thinner being high. Well, you know what? Go down to the local body shop and get a gallon of DuPont retarder, which is about the equivalent. Remember, all thinner is not the same. Brodak thinner is roughly equivalent to what DuPont retarder would be in terms of quality, in terms of ingredients. And to get this is the whole key to having a good finish. If you compromise one part of it and you don't get this, I guess we're looking at a 5.5 hour sand out, you've missed one of the big advantages of using this material. And this is one thing I just want to say over, and this is going to be ready. I'm going to brush on a coat of silver here before the day's out. I'm just going to dust this off. Again, a lot of people think, well, yeah, at this point in time, you go sand this until you go right down to the raw wood. If you go down to the raw wood, there was no point in putting it on. It's knowing how much to leave on, how much to take off, and being able to get it to powder off. That's the whole key to Brodak dope. Test on this. I have the filler that I previously used to spray. I'm going to try the same can of filler. I just want to shake it up a little bit. I want to see how this is going to go on if I brush it on. Since it'll be relatively thin, it'll be a good test to see if this is what we're going to need for the first coat anyway. And then I anticipate at some point in time I'm going to sand all the silver off the plane after the fillets and canopy and everything is in, but this will just let me block sand out as much of the body as possible while I'm waiting for the canopy to get here.
We're going to let that dry overnight and hopefully get tomorrow, the next day, get it all sanded out and then get a spray coat of silver on everything. Now in today's mail, got a couple of pictures here from Bob Overmeyer. These are from, let's see, the 96 Nats. Some really nice pictures, and I'm glad he sent them out. I tell you, when the plane is all polished up and waxed up and everything, oh man, it always looks so nice. Here we got some top 5 pictures. Always good memories. This was the Fitz one, if I remember right. Yeah, he's down there. Again, I always appreciate having the Walker pictures. I always have those posters, by the way, up. That's a handy thing to have. Now these are more pictures, and these are from Bob. Again, these are from Bob Overmeyer. He sent 2 sets of them. This is the 98 Nats. Oh, it doesn't look a whole lot different to me. In fact, it's exactly the same plane. With the same canopy, with the same, I don't know what. Same fingerprints all over it. Anyway, boy, I really do love to have the pictures. Bob, if you only knew. Here it is sitting there with the canopy open and the hook down and the who knows what. Yep, this is 98, Paul won this year. I know Ted had that painted on the bottom of the plane. I thought that was so cool. Thanks, Shireen. And you better thank her. Hey. You better buy her a doll for Valentine's Day. And Paul, of course, always smiling. I got about the 50th time he's won the Walker Cup. Hey, this is a nice picture right here. I didn't see this one before. I was looking through these before. Now, it's always funny. You look at some of the expressions on some of the people's faces. Some people don't know. They really have some funny... There's a funny picture I have with the junior champ there picking his hair or something. Anyway, the ring. I like the ring in this picture. You got some nice pictures here. Paul, you need the hat. And of course the one we all love. The one I love anyway. Hey, from Bob Overmeyer, I thank you very much. We will be sending you out some videotapes, a little retribution, and hey, hope you'll be using Brodak dope also. We've been having some good luck. I didn't realize we were so close to the end of this tape. We're not going to get to do anything else on this tape. Anyway, I didn't get the canopies yet from Midgley. That's one of the next things we're going to, I guess, hopefully have. And if I do get a chance, now I've been working around, so normally I would put the canopy on first, and I would get all this detailing done and then do the silver, but because I have to wait, of course, it's not especially being the price I'm paying, I can't really complain. I need to do the exhaust manifolds and some of these little blisters around the nose. There's a bunch of other little detailing I need to do to flap fillets, but basically one of the things that, I always at the end of a tape like this try to plan what I'm going to do in the next week or so. We got a lot of stuff coming up. I got a little finishing day that we're planning out in the garage with some of the club people. Try to introduce them to the world of Brodak dope, but a lot of stuff coming up. We're molding plenty of carbon backplates, plenty of carbon gear. There's things going on all the time. We're busy. And the plane seems like the Brodak dope is just, I don't know, so easy. I don't know how somebody could not get a nice finish with that product. A letter from Frank McMillan today. Bob Hunt is supposed to be drawing up some new proposals, new ideas for appearance judging. So obviously if anybody out there has some ideas they'd like considered, Bob would be the person to pass them along to. And hopefully we'll come up with, I don't know what. To me, the best idea is just don't let people in the event judge it. Get pylon and scale guys. That always seems to work out real well. Anyway, and congratulations again. Walker Cup winner for I don't know how many times, in 98 too. Boy, you're still a king. Thanks for joining us. Please share the tape. See you on the next tape.